Welcome to the Golf Improvement Podcast, Episode 11.
Welcome to the podcast for golf lovers and enthusiasts who are looking to take their games to new heights. Dedicated to custom club fitting, short game improvement, and effective practice to improve your golf game. This is the Golf Improvement Podcast with your host, Tony Wright.
Hello, this is Tony Wright from Game Improvement Golf in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, with a Golf Improvement Podcast, dedicating to bringing you useful information on custom club fitting, short game improvement, and effective practice techniques to take your game to new heights. In less than 3 weeks, I'll be off to Columbus, Georgia for the 9th Annual Association of Golf Club Fitting Professionals Roundtable. This will happen October 9th to 11th. I'm actually going down Tuesday, a few days early. Get to spend a lot of time with a lot of old friends and just spend the day being immersed in talking, the week, being immersed in talking club fitting. This is the 8th roundtable I've attended. I remembered when I went to the first one that I went to, roundtable number 2, how dazed I was at all of the things that were discussed and many new things that I had no knowledge of. But a lot of the same people would be there, and some of the brilliant people in custom club fitting around the world attend this meeting. For me, there's 2 really exciting parts of this roundtable that are a little bit different from the past. First of all, 2 of my really good friends, Bill Whitesell from Conquest Custom Golf in Cincinnati, Ohio, and Dan Wilt from Link to the Links in Columbia, Tennessee, will be doing their master's exam to become designated as a master in custom club fitting from the AGCP. You have to have been a club fitter for at least 10 years and then go through a pretty rigorous exam certification process to do this. Both of these guys are Golf Digest Top 100 fitters, and both have helped me quite a lot over the last 7 or 8 years when I have different questions about club fitting. They're very willing to help in any way that they can. Second, this particular roundtable is exciting because there's going to be a lot of new faces there. Over the last year, a lot of new club fitters have joined the AGCP, and this is going to be the first time that some of them have attended the roundtable. So I view this as really good news for golfers because these guys have an insatiable desire to learn more about custom club fitting, and they have a pretty big passion for helping golfers to play their best golf. As crazy as some of the things have been in the golf industry over the last month or so, I think those of you listening to this podcast should take it as good news that there are still people who want to become custom club fitters and help people to play their best golf. So I will be reporting about the roundtable a week or so after it's done. I'm going to do actually a few interviews with folks while I'm there, and hopefully we'll get some good information to pass on to you. So that's it for right now, but I know you're going to enjoy this second interview that I've done with Tom Wishon from Tom Wishon Golf Technologies. Hello, this is Tony Wright with the Golf Improvement Podcast. A few weeks ago, I did one of my first podcasts with Tom Wishon of Tom Wishon Golf, and I figured why not ask again? And I said, Tom, anytime you're interested in talking again, I'd love to have you do it. And he said, I'd love to talk about adjustable Hosel drivers. So, Tom, welcome today, and this is a kind of an interesting topic. I know it's something you're very interested in, and certainly a lot of us club fitters are too. And certainly golfers need to be. So welcome today, and here we go.
Thanks, Tony. It's always great to have a chance to talk tech with you guys.
Well, Tom, let's sort of start out with, when we've talked a little bit in the past, you have mentioned that you were one of the first people to actually develop an adjustable driver. Maybe talk a little bit about that and sort of the history of that.
Yeah, actually, it goes back to the days. I'm old. What that means in terms of my club design and club making experience is I began my career back when woods were made from trees. Okay, so back in those days when you would make a wooden headed driver or fairway wood, the raw piece of wood turning in the rough shape of the head came with a very big fat diameter neck, and the reason for that was so if we wanted to do a custom head, customize some features on the club head, we could bore the hole for the shaft at an angle into the head, and that was how you could set up the bore angle so you could offer someone a different lie angle or a different face angle. The loft angle was always set on the head itself and could only be changed if you wanted to take out your rasp or file and file more loft or less loft off the wooden head. Reason for that is because forever and ever, the specifications for loft, lie, and face angle were measured by soling the driver to sit flat on its sole on the ground, and then the specs were measured there. So with that experience of knowing what angling the bore in the head, would do to change lie and face angle, it was 1995 when we were well all into the metalwood era, that I had this thought about, club makers need metalwoods with different lie and different face angle specs.
Yeah.
And up to that time, the only way you could do that was to go out and make another separate tooling die to cast the head with that different lie or face angle. And of course, that's expensive, to do, and not very practical for most companies. So I thought back to the days of angling the bore, drilling the bore into a wooden head, and I said, well, maybe we can do that with a metalwood here. If I make the hosel large enough so that I can put a sleeve into the hosel, and the sleeve has the bore hole set at an angle, then you can rotate the sleeve around inside, and you can change the angle of the shaft going in the head and change the lie angle and the face angle. So This was 1995, and I was designing all the heads for Golfsmith and their various brands that they've owned, and did a model of a set of woods, driver and fairway woods, called the AHT woods. And, of course, AHT was the acronym for Adjustable Hosel Technology. Now, the one I did, this didn't have a screw lock through the bottom of the head, as you see with the modern clubs, but we machined an aluminum sleeve with the bore angle, at an angle in the sleeve, and that was then epoxied into the hosel of the heads, and the shaft epoxied into the sleeve. So the idea was not to let the golfer go out and just tinker on his own on the driving range, to keep changing and changing till he found whatever it was he liked, but for a fitter, club fitter, be able to have this, determine what lie and face angle that the golfer needed, then go ahead and epoxy the adjustable hosel sleeve into the head in that position. But that was 1995, came out in that 95 Golfsmith catalog, and that was the industry's very first adjustable hosel metalwood. It works on the same principles of what they're doing today out there.
Yeah. Wow, interesting. Well, you come up with a lot of the firsts, so that's kind of fun. Now, I'd like you to talk a little bit about what from a golfer standpoint, and I guess from a club fitter too. What do you see as the truth and the important things they need to know about sort of the present generation of adjustable hosel drivers?
Yeah, the biggest thing that's confusing about that is that the way that the modern adjustable hosel drivers are being made represents a change in how the companies are now defining the loft angle of a driver head. And this is kind of a big deal. Forever and ever and ever, leading up to the last couple of years, every golf club company and every clubhead production factory were all in agreement as to how they would measure loft and how they would then, design the loft on heads and verify their loft measurements. This was all done by positioning the club head, the driver head, in a specifications measuring machine so that the head sat flat on its sole. Okay, and in that position, then loft could then be measured face angle and lie angle. Okay, and everybody has done that method forever and ever. Okay, a few years ago, when the companies decided to do the modern version of the adjustable hosel drivers, in looking at this, to be able to have these adjustable hosel driver devices that simply change the angle of the bore into the head, to be able to have them change loft, the only way that can be done is if the golfer always holds the face square to the target in the same way that he addresses the ball with an iron. With irons have never had a face angle to try to correct for a slice or a hook.
Yeah.
Largely because irons have so much more loft, and they are much shorter in length, and so a golfer doesn't have anywhere near as much tendency to slice or hook an iron as he does a driver, which is much longer. So we've always learned to use irons by setting the face down so the leading edge of the face is square to the target line. And that's how loft has always been measured on an iron, in a square face position. Not so on a wood. We always soled the wood. The woods have wider soles, so we can then create different angles of the hosel, the bore, to the sole, to change lie and face angle, to offer these corrective features in these longer, lower lofted clubs.
Yeah.
So, with the adjustable hosel, modern adjustable hosel drivers, the only way they change loft is when you set the hosel into its different position, and then you always hold the face square to the target line, and you never let it sit dead flat on its sole. Now, each of these devices, each of these adjustable hosel drivers have one position or two that is more of what they call the neutral position, and what that means is in the neutral position, the adjustable hosel driver can be soled, and the face will sit square. But every other position, and usually it works like this, as you dial the adjustable hosel position to a lower loft number, and if you sole that driver, it sits open with an open face angle. If you then dial it to the higher lofts that are listed on the adjustable hosel device, and then if you sole the driver, then it sits hooked, okay? To then get the loft change, you manually have to rotate it from that open soled position or closed sole position to where you're holding it behind the ball dead square.
Yeah.
Then you get a loft change, okay? And in that sense, that's how the adjustable hosel drivers change loft. And that then represents a change in how we measure loft, because you're no longer soling the driver to get that specification of loft with that.
Now, there's at least one where I know there's one driver, I'm not talking names, but where they've got a little screw thing on the bottom, and at least they claim that you can independently change some of that stuff. And I know you're aware of that one. You have any comments on that kind of an approach? And
yeah, actually, it's funny. The history of this goes all the way back to the old Kenneth Smith Golf Company.
Huh.
Those who are old like me, who remember Kenneth Smith, some of his early teachings and information that they put out. Kenneth Smith used to say, if you wanted to change the face angle on an existing wood, that you would remove the sole plate. You would file material off of either the heel or the back of the heel or the front heel area, somehow get the sole plate back on, and that would cause the head to then tilt more closed or tilt more open. Same difference with what the little dial-it device on the bottom of the TaylorMade driver you're talking about.
Yeah, well, I was trying not to say that, but there you go.
But anyway, the idea is that little dial-it device, has different shapes. As you dial it, it pushes down more in one direction than another. So if you sole the driver, it only works if you sole the driver.
Yeah.
Then it changes the way it sits in terms of the face angle. But here again, I did a very extensive study, and that was one of the drivers that I had in my study, to put it through all 64 of its combination of hosel device plus sole rotation device to measure the specs, and it doesn't come up to what it says.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Anyone else who has a great deal of experience in designing club heads and measuring club head specs would come up with the same conclusion. So this is not just some commercial criticism that I'm making.
Yeah.
It just simply doesn't work. It doesn't do what it says it does from a technical standpoint for all the different specifications.
Yeah, you did a pretty exhaustive study of a lot of different drivers, so that was pretty valuable, and that may be something I'll put in the show notes too for people to, if they're interested in that. Now,
to be honest with you, Tony, I caught a tremendous amount of criticism, even to the point of bordering on hate, when that was published. Much to the effect of, how can someone like you know more about driver design than a giant golf company can know? I guess you have to just say that's the power of what marketing does to a lot of people's opinions.
Yeah. Wow. Well, one of the things, and I know you're prepared to talk about this, but one of the things that I don't see a lot of the OEM drivers, but some of them, it seems like they're designed so that, and when I measure loft and face angle, I'm always sold in the club, but it seems like they're all very open face. And I'm going to go back to, maybe, 5-6 years ago, where I would go into golf stores and, almost all the drivers you would see would have, 1 degree, 2 degree closed face. And now there seems to be a lot of them that have very open faces, no matter what you do to them. And that really, to me at least, for the vast majority of golfers who are always fighting slices and stuff, that doesn't make sense. Do you have any sense as to why? My guess is it's because they're maybe catering some to, the big boomers that are fighting hooks. But I'm curious about your comment on that.
Yeah, there's no question that all the golf equipment companies have known for a very long time that it is the much better golfers who act like the Pied Piper effect for the equipment. If you can really please the good golfers, at a golf course, and they all go out and start saying positive things about your golf clubs, well, then all those people who are less skilled, higher handicappers, tend to listen and say, well, he's a really good golfer, so he should know everything about equipment, therefore this must be an okay golf club. That definitely does happen, within the attitudes of the golf equipment industry. So it's always been known, that most good players don't like to see a closed face angle when they sole the driver on the ground. When we all go into if people go into a golf store and they start browsing around looking at all the clubs, how do they do it? Think about it. All they do, they grab the club off the rack, they look at the head, to see the features of the head close up, and then the first thing they do, they sole the club on the carpet or the floor of the store. And they look how the head shape looks, and they look how it sits. And most of the better players, well, one of the reasons they're a better player is because they hit the ball straighter. Yeah. Golfers who tend to hit the ball straight prefer to have a square to slightly open-looking face angle when they sole the driver. So to a good player who soles a driver in a golf store and sees that the face point's left in a hook face angle, the first thing that they usually do is go, ooh, yuck, that looks horrible. They can't put it back on the rack soon enough to go then and grab the next one to see how it looks. So this has all been a situation because the big golf companies have always had to pursue the business model of building their golf clubs to one series of standard specifications so they could be shipped to all the retail stores, put on the rack, sold off the rack to golfers. So retailers and big golf companies hate having tons of different inventory units to have to deal with. So, really the perfect fitting scenario for a retail store would be if they stocked the same driver in like 5 different lofts and then 5 or 6 different combinations of face angle to go with that. Well, that's an inventory nightmare for, the golf company and the retailer because he's got 6 or 8 or 10 other golf companies' products that he also needs to stock in there too. It just is not manageable for their business model to be able to do that. So when the big companies choose a standard spec for their driver, they most often are going to choose, what the stock face angle would be, squared or slightly open, so it looks good to the good player, who then can go on and say, this is a really good, driver. It sits really good.
Yeah. I had an experience with a great lady player, though, recently, and she bought a new driver. It was going right all the time. She couldn't figure it out. Beautiful golf swing. Oh my gosh, and it was very open. And she went and bought another one that was square or closed a little bit. She absolutely started nutting the ball, and it made a huge difference for her. So, but again, that one really wasn't meant for her. So.
Well, there's no question that you and the other club fitters who have really good experience like you have, you guys learned a long time ago that face angle on a driver and woods can be one of the very most powerful game improvement specifications for a golfer in these custom fit clubs. It's real noble to sit here and think that all the golfers who slice the ball should go out and take lessons, learn the proper swing path and release, and then hit the ball straighter. I agree. that's always the best solution. But the fact of the matter is, as I've seen it from my experience when I started in the PGA and taught, and then in watching, golfers over years and years, is that several things get in the way of that. Number one, lessons cost a lot of money. Lessons take a lot of time. Lessons don't do you any good unless you're willing to spend hours on the range practicing what you've been taught.
Yeah.
Okay, that's how it works. And the problem is most golfers either don't have the money or they don't have the real realization of the time and commitment it takes to really change their swing. Okay, but the second point in this, and this is even more important, no matter what, golf is an athletic endeavor. Different than football, basketball, and all that, but it's still an athletic endeavor because we have to learn to make fundamentally correct swing moves to hit the ball really well. So one of those is a square to inside out swing path with a release that then can deliver the face square to the to the target line.
Yeah.
And that is really difficult for golfers who don't have great athletic ability to be able to master. So there's absolutely no question. When Golf Digest came out a number of years ago in a cover article and said 70% of all golfers slice the ball to some degree, that's the most common swing error. Over the top, outside in swing path, don't release properly, leave the face open. Boom, it curves to the right for, then it slides.
For right-handers, right.
And for those golfers like that, the very best way to reduce that tendency to slice is to move into a face angle that's more closed than what they had. And here lies one of the biggest problems that I have with all of the adjustable Hosel drivers, even mine that I designed.
Yeah.
And that's the fact that if you're going to use the adjustable Hosel driver to change the loft, that means that you always have to hold the face square to the target line in the address position. If you do that, you eliminate and you erase face angle as being a possible fitting help to a golfer who has slicing or hooking misdirection problems. So, yeah, the adjustable Hosel drivers do change loft as long as you know that you always have to hold that face square to the target just like you do with an iron. But when you do that, you eliminate face angle as being a possible game improvement fitting help for the golfer. And that's not a good situation if you believe Golf Digest when they say that 70% of all golfers slice the ball.
Yeah. Well, Tom, let's wrap up with you telling golfers then, you've given them some of the technical parts of it. So what are those, few things that you suggest then that they do? Now, of course, we know be fit, but any other specific things, when they're going to go out and make decisions about drivers related to adjustable Hosel drivers?
Yeah, without question, it's different depending on the skill level and playing, the golfer, obviously. But, if we're talking about helping the vast majority of golfers, and let's talk about those, the vast majority of golfers shoot between low 80s and 100. Okay? For those kinds of golfers that are out there, the standard driver lengths that are being made by the big companies and sold off the rack today are too long. They're going to get in the way of you ever being able to hit the driver as well as you can. So shorter driver length without question. This has been something that you and your fellow good club makers have been doing for golfers for a very long time, and proving that it works to get them down into where they're no longer than 44, and depending on their ability, maybe even 43 and a half inches. For many golfers, that alone right there allows them to hit the ball more on center, which actually gives them more distance than when they start hitting it off center from the longer length. That's big. Having the loft and the face angle fit correctly to the golfer, the loft fit, correctly to the golfer's club head speed and their angle of attack into the ball, so they can get the best combination of carry distance and roll for their club head speed. And as you well know, that obviously means the slower the club head speed, usually, and the more downward the angle of attack, the higher that driver loft needs to be, out there. And oftentimes there are many golfers out there who are optimized with 13, 14, 15 degrees of loft on the driver. None of this 9, 10, and 11 stuff out there. As I mentioned before, face angle is the number one best way to reduce a slicer hook. Face angle in combination with a little shorter driver length is going to help immensely to keep the ball more in play. We're not going to turn a 35-yard slice into a dead straight shot down the center, but we can turn a 35-yard slice into a 20-yard slice or a 15-yard slice, and without question, that's going to keep the ball in play more often. The more you're in play with unobstructed second shots to a green, the more chance you get closer to that green to either or hit the green, so your chances for making double bogeys and triple bogeys are greatly reduced. Your chances of getting a few more pars here and there are also improved, with that. So, when you're talking about length, loft, face angle, and the driver, huge to have these things all fit independently of each other for what the golfer needs. And that's a key point, fit independently of each other, because with most of the adjustable Hosel drivers, you cannot get loft and face angle independent of each other to meet the golfer's fitting needs.
Well, Tom, I appreciate getting to talk with you again today. Anytime you're interested in doing this again, we'll do it. I'm going to end here by saying if you want to learn more about Tom Wishon and Tom Wishon Golf Technology, go to www.wishongolf.com. And again, thanks, Tom. I appreciate it.
My pleasure, Tony. I always like to talk about golf equipment because there's such a need for having the right and the best information so golfers can make the best buying decisions.
It's fun to play your best golf, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Take care, Tony. Thanks again for the invite.
And again, in case he's listening, I did tell Larry Weiss that you said hi, so that's a different topic. But I get to see him every Friday and play golf with him. So.
All right, sounds good.
Bye now.
Take care.
www.GameImprovementGolf.com.
Tom, thanks again for this interview. And for all you listening to this podcast, a little bonus. If you look in the show notes for the podcast, you'll see a link to a video that Tom did on adjustable Hosel drivers. I think you'll find it useful information, and the video and the podcast interview definitely complement each other. Well, that's it for today. In 2 weeks, you'll get the opportunity to listen to and learn from George Connor, a PGA professional and author of a really neat Amazon Kindle book, Drill Your Way to Great Putting. This book is absolute dynamite, and I can't wait to hear what he says to help golfers improve their putting. See you in 2 weeks.
Game Improvement Golf, your source of information and inspiration to become an exceptional golfer now. www.GameImprovementGolf.com.